What is happening, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review the new movie Rats, which made a big splash last year at the Fantasia Film Festival. And I likely would have missed this movie entirely if not for the tireless efforts of some of the film fanatics in the comments section on previous videos. But whoever told me to go see this movie, much obliged, because I laughed like hell. And in a lot of ways, the movie reminded me of the great heyday of independent movies back in the 1990s, where movies were made by young people, for young people. And I've clearly aged out of that demographic, but I'm not too decrepit where I can't recognize the rebellious, independent spirit when I see it. Because Rats is one of those wild, irreverent, punk rock comedies with aggressively bad taste that has midnight movie written all over it. And there are going to be a lot of people out there who struggle to watch this movie due to the non-existent budget or the inexperienced cast and crew, and that's totally fine because this is a movie with niche appeal. Whatever is more niche than niche. I mean, cult classic is way too broad for a movie like this, but there will be a niche audience that completely embraces this movie, starts quoting this movie with their friends, throwing parties where they watch it, and hopefully get inspired to make comedies of their own, because that genre has been an endangered species in recent years. So if you're one of those people that loves outrageous, provocative humor where the filmmakers basically flip the double bird to corporate-approved, safe entertainment, Rats very well might be up your alley. But before I go any deeper into my video, let me offer a few stats from Wikipedia, because I know this movie is going to be off the radar of the great majority of people. So here's all the information you need to know. Rats is a 2024 American independent black comedy film written and directed by Maxwell, Nalevansky, and Carl Fry, produced by With Pleasure Cinema Group and distributed by Yellow Veil Pictures. The film is set in the fictional town of Fresno, Texas, and that's actually a great ongoing joke about whether or not you pronounce the P, but it's in the year 2007 and follows Raphael, who after being arrested by an overzealous police officer gets caught up in a chaotic world of drug kingpins, eco-terrorists, mall rats, and rappers. The film blends gross out humor with social commentary, highlighting the disorder of small-town life and youth counterculture in 2000s Texas. The film received the Bronze Audience Award for Best International Feature at the 2024 Fantasia Film Festival. And I should add that the film is shot in Pflugerville, Texas, a town located near Austin. And I'm assuming that the P in Pflugerville is also silent, which led to the ongoing joke about the pronunciation of the town featured in Rats, but this is all speculation on my part. In any case, I'm thrilled to see that the independent film scene around Austin is alive and well, because one of the great casualties of war recently, with the popularity of things like YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, I mean, here we are on YouTube, is that I feel like the social media platforms and all these video platforms, they've kind of bled dry the independent film scene, and all that talent has gone into creating content. And once again, I'm not criticizing content. I create a lot of content, but I also admire filmmakers, people who actually can write a script and shoot it and perform it and distribute it and actually get people to buy a ticket to watch it. I feel like that's much more challenging. It's much like everybody likes to criticize the film industry and everybody likes to think they could do it better. Writing and directing and producing a movie and getting it out there is incredibly challenging. And so if I can use my channel to help a few more people see Rats who might enjoy it, well then, mission accomplished. But with all that praise out of the way, I must admit that initially, I really struggled to get on this movie's wavelength. And I watched the trailer like 10 or 15 times before seeing it. I was actually excited to go see the movie. But as the movie got underway, like the jokes weren't landing and the scene seemed to drag on kind of awkwardly and endlessly. I was like, oh God, like I might have made a huge mistake with my Friday evening. But then this one scene came along that totally changed the movie. Or maybe I just needed to learn, like there's certain comedies where you have to kind of learn what is their style of humor. Like when there's a style of dialogue, or it sounds like it's a bunch of like old friends who have their own style of humor that's kind of like a lot of inside jokes. And if you're not familiar with the inside jokes, well, then they're just going to come across as a little strange to you. But there's one scene that's so violent and so grotesque and has so many bodily fluids, vomit, blood, shit, etc. And it was just so completely unhinged and over the top. I was like, all right, I think I can hang in here for another 80, 90 minutes or so. I think with the whole movie, it's only 85 minutes. So yeah, very, very short movie. So you can all afford to be patient. But the scene completely leaned into that aggressively bad taste that characterized a lot of early movies by like Trey Parker and Matt Stone when they made Cannibal the Musical, or even some early 70s or late 60s stuff by John Waters.
Kill everyone now. Condone first-degree murder. Advocate cannibalism. Eat shit. Filth are my politics. Filth is my life. Take whatever you like.
And I realize I'm setting up wildly unrealistic expectations by comparing the movie to Trey Parker, Matt Stone, John Waters. But there are people out there who love bad taste, who like their films to be completely filthy and completely shameless. And these filmmakers are definitely telling their own story in their own unique style. But if you like movies that are the antithesis of good taste or sound judgment, Rats very well might be your thing. So I'm thrilled that it stuck around. And then a few hours later, after watching the movie, I was like, you know what? If I could watch it again right now, I probably would. And that's actually a really good sign. And luckily, the movie's getting a digital release on March 11th. But as I heap praise upon this movie, I have to be aware of or cautious about two possible factors. One, you should never overpraise a movie because you like what it represents. Like, I would love it if there was just 100 people scattered across Texas making low-budget, outrageous comedies about, suburban malaise or suburban blight. I feel like Richard Linklater did a really good job back in the 1990s exploring suburban malaise. So I like what this movie represents, but you always got to tap the brakes and try to look at a movie on its own terms as objectively as humanly possible. But another thing I'm cautious about is I don't want to come across like that Steve Buscemi meme where it's like he's like 70 years old walking through the high school with the skateboard stand like, hello, fellow children, blah, blah, blah. I'm knocking at the door 50. I'm not punk rock at all. The people who made this movie and the people who are going to enjoy this movie might be punk rock. But then again, punk rock is also a pretty outdated reference at all. I mean, it's music from the 1970s. But the punk spirit is basically like whatever you're for, I'm against. Everybody go fuck yourselves. We're doing our own thing. But as I was watching this movie and giggling shamelessly at all the inappropriate content, just all the random acts of violence or sexually aggressive females, I mean, yeah, there's nudity and there's porn and there's all kinds of crazy shit going on in this movie. But as I was watching it, I realized, you know what? There's not a single movie I can think of that this movie's trying to imitate or copy or take inspiration from. It felt wildly original. And even if some of the jokes fall right on their face, and even if some of the actors sound like they've never acted in their lives until they showed up on the set for this movie. And yet, it's hard not to fall in love with a movie that is just completely, totally counterculture in every way, shape, or form, and at the same time, trying to entertain you to the best of its ability in its own unique way every step of the way. And ultimately, I think the success of the movie boils down to the unhinged performance by Danielle Evan Ploger as Officer Williams. And Luke Wilcox, he's fine as Raphael Tensky, and Darius Autry, he's fine as his drug-dealing cousin Mateo. I mean, they're delightful. They're very charismatic. They're very, very lovable, very entertaining. But Danielle Evan Ploger, she just, like with every single scene, she's like, what can I do just to make people's brains explode with whatever I'm saying or doing? And I don't know if it was improv or written or a bit of both, but it's just, she's so unpredictable and so just fucking spontaneous and aggressive and offensive. I just found myself laughing like hell with every single line that came out of her mouth. And her character, along with so many others, they're so outlandish and so strange. It makes the whole movie come across like this cultural oddity or anomaly from another planet, because it's not playing by the rule book of movies over the last 10 years, where I feel like we've been living through this plague of ultra-sensitivity and good taste, where no movies will ever offend anybody and not going to ruffle anybody's feathers and blah, blah, blah. And this movie doesn't come across like a movie with like an axe to grind. It just comes across like a movie where the filmmakers just don't give a fuck. They're like, we find this shit funny. We find these people to be hilarious, and now we're going to share them with you. And like they have like their own slang. Like, this is a mild spoiler, but for whatever reason in the movie, they don't pronounce hands as hands. They pronounce it as Hans. And early on, I was like, why do people keep pronouncing hands as Hans? But it becomes this recurring joke because one of the subplots of the movie is that there are serial killers on the loose that are hacking off people's Hans. And over the course of the movie, when people discover Hans and they will react in horror, it just gets a little bit funnier each time. And I suspect the second time I see this, when they start saying Hans, I'm just going to start laughing like hell. But comedy is so weird because you can't really explain it. You either laugh or you don't. And if you don't laugh, I'm sorry, you're just not going to find this movie to be funny. And if you try to overly explain it, then the joke is lost. But I was laughing, and I suspect some other people absolutely will be laughing as well.
See you next time, Texas.
And I should also add that one of the reasons I enjoyed this movie is because I saw it at the Alamo Drafthouse in Lower Manhattan, and nobody does a better job of creating weird pre-movie programming than the Alamo Drafthouse. And they'll show music videos and just all kinds of crazy shit that's just like pop culture esoterica from 1,000 years ago. But they showed one short, which I've never seen before, from legendary animation director Robert Clampett. But I think there's a reason why this one is so obscure. But the movie is from 1947, and it's called A Grand Old Nag. And maybe it's just me, but I found it to have disturbingly erotic depictions of horses. And if you're into horses, that's on you. That's not necessarily my thing, but as I was watching, I was like, what in the name of fuck am I watching? But once you've seen a short, like it's a grand old nag, it's kind of like all bets are off and you're ready for whatever apocalyptic punk rock kind of counterculture comedy might be on the agenda for the evening. So I'll just close with this. I'm just relieved to know that there are young filmmakers out there who are completely independent from the kind of the media entertainment landscape of Los Angeles and New York, who are doing their own thing, telling their own stories their own way, and making people laugh every step of the way. I hope other kids out there will take inspiration from it, but at a minimum, I just hope there are a bunch of kids out there that are going to enjoy it, or who knows, maybe even some dirty old men out there who might enjoy it as well.
I ain't the one under investigation here. This hood's full of perverts.
Perverts? Damn.
If you're a movie fan and you feel like in recent years you've been deprived of the privilege of laughing at some really fucked up shit, I hope Rats will find an audience with that crowd. And the good news is, because they made this movie for like $5, it doesn't need to find that many fans to be a success. I have no idea what the budget was or how much money they've spent on distributing the movie, but it can't have been much. So I just hope I just hope that the movie and the crowd that might like it can connect and laugh and have a good time, and that Maxwell, Nalevansky, and Carl Fry can go on to write and direct more movies in the not-so-distant future. So thanks again to whoever recommended that I hunt down Rats. You were 100% right. The movie was right up my alley. And if you like this video, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell. But I hope everybody's a great weekend. But more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.